Our guest is still Eesuola, political scientist, research associate professor at UNILAG. Now, you were just saying how very important, the power base is for either the people or, depending on who it is, there are different power bases, so to speak, and
power
bases have to be managed properly.
Power bases.
There was also the point yesterday that was made along the lines of, look, well, not so much that the point was made, but it seems that what we have now is that you can either look at this, diplomatically, that is to say, for us to take when I say us, I'm talking about the rest of Africa, to take a diplomatic approach, or indeed take a
military approach.
A military
confrontational
approach. Now, and then it's complicated, I think, by the fact that there are other parties involved. For instance, we've mentioned Russia. Russia might not have been directly involved, but Russia is known to be wanting influence in Africa. China, ditto. The UK and the US that have always been there, well, we get as people are thinking about them now. So how complicated do you think the negotiations would be if it was decided that in the interest of the least collateral damage, perhaps we need to find a way to persuade these rebels to give it up? Is that a likely?
Well, I mean, you have just spoken my mind. Historically, confrontations have never worked to resolve any political crisis. You go to war, you kill people, people die in thousands and millions. You must return to the talk table, okay? I commended the effort of ECOWAS, the disposition. That's what should go to the world. But the underlying approach should be slightly different from that confrontation. When they get to the table, diplomacy must come. Persuasion, as you chose the word, must come. First should be the extreme consideration. And that can only come if all things are deemed to have failed. You cannot win the war by just extreme. The reasons are clear. The situation in that region, especially the Sahel, is already complicated. By the time you send soldiers to start operating in that region, how are you sure of the reaction of Chad, reaction of Mali, reaction of Burkina Faso military on their colleague who is being assaulted by what is supposed to be an ECOWAS force? You cannot predict. There are several uncertainties that could come with that. So I would advise that in as much as the government, the ECOWAS and its leadership under Ahmed Tinubu has done the right thing by making statements. There's a distinction between public statement and public action. Okay, the statements have been made diplomatically, politically. The world knows that ECOWAS is not in support. However, in resolving the problem, the approach must be eclectic. Any attempt to use force alone.
It's it will be unpredictable.
Don't let the prophet of doom, won't be. That's what I think.
I think enough said. We'll take your phone calls as well now, and as soon as they put it up there, because Nigeria must be watching this very, very, very carefully. And indeed, President Tinubu, as you said, has spoken as it's his turn as the president of Nigeria to be the chair. So he's put the right forward.
That's the best way to read.
And he's been very, as if he was to know that a thing like this might happen. From the very first day, he's been forceful in saying that democracy can be messy, can be difficult, but there is no alternative.
Yeah, he had that premonition. But again, they have been happening. This is the fourth. Only the space of 2 or 3 years in West Africa. So it was right of him to have made that statement at the point of swearing in that we need to protect democracy. But I said it elsewhere, or even on this platform, that protecting democracy cannot be done by words of mouth. You must protect governance. If you don't protect governance, you cannot protect democracy. If I were hired by ECOWAS to make some professional suggestions, the first thing today that I would say must be established in ECOWAS is a committee for good governance in West Africa.
Okay.
That committee will be more potent in addressing insurgency, coup, and counter-coup, much more potent than the committee that is called anti-coup, anti-military coup. The other one is bogus. Anti-military coup, how do you antagonize military coup without resolving the internal contradictions that make soldiers go to the street?
Well, exactly. But in this, it is soldiers. It is soldiers that went to the street, and worse still, of his own very presidential guard. But let me, before we continue, let me bring Kenneth in. Kenneth is in Abuja. Good morning to you, Kenneth.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for calling in. Go ahead, please, with your comment or perhaps question for...
Yes, the question I want to ask in this topic is that in as much as I did not support military coup in any part of Africa or West Africa, the so-called democratic government, they are not treating its citizens fine. You understand me? They are not treating the citizens fine, just like what is happening in Nigeria now. They are budgeting heavy amounts for the National Assembly. They are budgeting heavy amounts for the executives. But the citizens, you ask them to wait. Wait till when? So something also replicated in other African countries you are seeing. So they should also enter there. They have enough to eat. They should give the little they are supposed to give to the citizens. This is what is causing uprising, is where there is no equality. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for calling in. You know, what Kenneth just said now, you know, there are quite a sizable number of Nigerians in Nigeria. Most of them that I have contact with work as security guards, megadis, that kind of a thing. Yes. And what Kenneth just said, when I was speaking with these guys, that is their persuasion that the suffering is too much. We like them. We like the coup. And, that's why I was careful to tell you what their occupation is, what their life, their worldview is.
We all know. It's public knowledge.
Exactly.
We know what to do.
So they...
Like the Okada riders,
that's
the
all
guards,
of that.
the truck pushers and all this stuff.
And they are solidly, as much as that
in support.
In support
and
of
they are
the coup.
part of the people.
And they are part of the people.
In
and
whose
the army
hands?
has said it is supporting the people. And so they are saying, yes, he has to go. Things are hard. Now, let's look at Niger. Second poorest country as they are in the world. And they say, yet it should potentially be as rich as can be with the uranium especially. Uranium is what people are talking about. And then France, as you know, with its own policies, most of which are unbelievable to those of us in West Africa, for instance. Can you imagine all our money having to go to the Central Bank of England, whether we like it or not, deposit it there, we would then let you take what you need to take.
Post-colonial administration.
Yeah, so all of that is going on. And it looks like the time is coming. It's not going to be an easy task because I imagine France is also on the sidelines watching all of this. Remember, there was this monetary thing, this financial thing also, where Russia is supposed to be involved in all of this. And I imagine France won't be liking any of this at all. So what is the attitude, what would you guess the attitude in a pragmatic sense, looking at the polity now, has to be?
See, first of all, let's trace it from
sorry,
where...
before you go let me take care of Mr. George, who called in.
Okay,
as well,
no problem.
So that, good morning, Mr. George.
And good morning to the professor.
We can't.
Good morning.
We can't hear, but maybe they will help us with that.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, now it's better.
Hello? You can hear me now?
Yes, please. Yes, thank you. We can.
Right. All right. Uncle Yori, let me start by asking the previous caller whether it is the military that does better for the people. The military is not known to be a government of the people. The one you have chosen by yourself to govern over you is better by all means than the one that imposed himself. The amount of money Abacha looted from Nigeria, was there anybody that was able to challenge him? Or if it was under civilian rule, even if you cannot retrieve the money, at least you can make noise. Okay, Yori, let's come back to the matter. I wish the president, our president, was given that role of the chairman of African Union. It would have been more effective with this kind of situation at hand. if the sanctions that ECOWAS is imposing on Niger would gravitate to using force, I would advise that ECOWAS should not do it alone. Let them make it an AU affair. Because if ECOMOG or ECOWAS is going into war with a neighboring country and Africa as a union is not doing it as a body, the whole problem will be on Nigeria. The whole expenses will be on Nigeria. And this is not a time for spending so much of our much-needed money to prosecute a war in a neighboring country.
Okay. All right. Thank you for calling in, Mr. George. Kadi, could you that?
The point raised is valid. If I read them very well, what the point is that people misunderstand the fact that the worst democracy is better than the best military rule, and that given the trajectory in Nigeria and other African countries, military governments have never been the solution. I agree. I don't in any way disagree. And that's why I said and clarified at the initial stage that what I gave was an explanation,
not a justification.
Not justification. I state here that there's no way anybody would prefer military rule to democratic rule. We can never call for it. It's an aberration. It should never be. But you can explain why it is. And that is why I took you on to the theoretical level of what we all know. People did not witness only the insurgents of the military. They are in support.
They're on the
same people you say have the highest level of sovereignty.
Exactly.
Are they now foolish? Do they not have that power anymore?
That's the complication.
So the question is, something is wrong either with our earlier understanding of sovereignty or with the practice, as the case may be. And that is what we need to probe into to be able to solve the problem.
But we have a problem right now.
Yes,
we can't take the time out to probe into
Good.
it.
So the Nigerian case is peculiar. Perhaps similar to those of other ECOWAS countries, but it's a bit peculiar. In 2021, when the current Nigerian president assumed power, he won that election. But I doubt if he won, as somebody put it in a discourse, the heart of the Nigerian people. There were complaints about violence, about rigging, just like, you have in many parts of Africa. Journalists were killed, in several cases. 2 were in record by the United Nations and other observers. So the civil polity in Niger was not very friendly to democratic practices. And if you witness the video that we saw, a country that is deemed to be the poorest or second poorest in the world, and then you saw the government secretariat, you see the kind of vehicles that you have there. How do you agree that that country is poor? So internal contradictions there were, and that explained why the people reacted, not justified.
Okay, yes. Chidi in Kapanchan, good morning. Thank you for holding on. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
And good morning to your guests.
Yes.
Good morning.
Yes, as a matter of fact, the situation in Niger Republic, as it stands now, is quite unnecessary and is quite unfortunate too. But at the same time, the regional group that is ECOWAS, that they have to adopt this issue with carefulness. It needs a diplomatic approach of the highest order at this point in time, given the proximity of Nigeria and Niger Republic. If the thing should escalate, the truth remains that it must heavily affect Nigeria as a country. Therefore, ECOWAS, under the able leadership of President Tinubu, should be proactive in finding out the most political and diplomatic solution that is needed to solve this very problem.
Indeed.
Thank you very much, and God bless Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much for calling in with that, Chidi. Again, we'll take another commercial break.